Am I the antagonist for refusing to care for my disabled sister? I, 28 yo F, have a sister, 24 years old F, who has Down syndrome. She is unable to look after herself, so my parents have been the ones to look after her. A year ago, my father passed away in a car accident, so it has been my mother as her sole caretaker. My mother, 60 yo F, was diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer a few months ago, so it has been very difficult for her to care for my sister. My mother has been extremely ill from the treatments and is constantly at appointments. I have been doing my best to try and support her and my sister during this difficult time. My mother recently had a discussion with me that she is no longer able to care for my sister anymore and wanted me to take on the role as her caregiver. My mother is worried my sister wouldn't cope well in a home and wants her to stay around family. I told my mother that I would not take on the role as her caregiver. The reason I refused is that I am currently working as an RN and am currently going to school to become a nurse practitioner. It has been my life dream to become a nurse practitioner someday. If I was to care for my sister, I would have to give that up. I told my mom I would help in getting my sister into a home and would constantly visit her to make sure she wasn't feeling neglected. My mother told me that I'm being incredibly selfish and should be ashamed of myself. She also said that it's unfair that she would have to pay for this home as well. I offered to help pay as well. She told the rest of my family, and they all have said that I'm a horrible person for not helping out. They all think I should look after her as I'm single and don't have any kids of my own. Am I really a bad person? I'm posting here in hopes of getting an unbiased opinion. NTA. This is a horrible situation, but it comes down to this: you did not choose to have your sister. Your mother chose to have another child, and the fact that your sister is developmentally disabled and needs a caretaker is not on you. You do not owe her anything. More than that, if you don't want to do the job but feel like you have to, you will be miserable and resent her, which is bad for her. You do not have the obligation to give up your entire life for this. Being a caretaker is a really time-consuming and stressful thing, and not everyone is suited for it. In your position, I would do the same thing. NTA. Your parents should have planned better for what would happen after their deaths. They had 24 years to do so. NTA and every one of these family members who are calling you out are offering what exactly besides criticism? Yeah, nothing. Just ask them which of them is ready to give up their life, hopes, and dreams to be a caregiver. No takers? Exactly. Double rods. You are not responsible for your sister. Don't give up your dreams. If you do, ultimately you'll very likely end up feeling resentful and unhappy. That would be awful for both of you. You can still be a good sister and put her in a home. Many people thrive in group homes. Will it be a big adjustment for her? Absolutely. It will take time and it will be tough at times until she is used to it. You can still be a supportive and loving sister without sacrificing your own life's happiness. Don't let anyone guilt you into believing otherwise. Am I the antagonist for refusing to put my husband's name on the title of my house? First, some important info. I, 30 female, have been married to my husband, 34 male, for 8 years now. We live in a culture where you never combine your finances after marriage. Some do, but they are the exception to the rule. Also, in the event of a divorce, there is nothing like common property or anything like that. You keep what you bought and anything that has your name on it. We met while we were studying, graduated the same year, have the same primary income. I do some freelance work. We are so in tune in everything except how to spend money, and he likes travel while I am a homebody. Since the first day of marriage, I proposed that we share the expenses, rent, utilities, groceries, cleaning lady, equally. Even though culturally the man is responsible for all of them, then we should have a savings account to save for a house. He didn't want to save for a house. He said that his money is better spent on experiences, and anyway, there is nothing wrong with renting until we are in our 50s, then we can buy a house. In the end, we agreed to have a shared account for expenses, then whatever is left is ours to do with what we want. He tends to take at least 2 weekend trips with his friends, staying in expensive hotels, going to concerts. Also, even though I cook almost every meal at home, most times he would just order out for lunch or dinner. I also go on weekend trips with my friends, but they are more day trips to the beach, hiking in the mountains, scuba diving. Each trip costs less than a tenth of what his trips do. Well, I have been saving for all of these 8 years, and now I am about to close on a small apartment and pay it in full, no interest or monthly payments. The plan is to live there, save what I am used to saving plus what I used to spend on rent, buy a bigger house and rent this apartment for extra income. And now he wants me to add his name to the deed. I flat out told him no, he didn't want to save, he didn't put a cent towards the house, so his name does not go on the deed. I also told him that I plan to buy a bigger house, and now that he doesn't have to pay rent, he can save and put his share towards the next house, then he can have his name on the deed of the house. Well, he called me an AH, said that this is not what it meant to be married, and took some days off to go on a trip to cool off. I don't think I am an AH, but I also tend to be stubborn when it comes to what I perceive as financial irresponsibility. So am I the antagonist? P.S. I am not a miser. I still paid for dates, bought him gifts just because I see something he might like, went on one expensive trip a year with him, usually abroad, etc. I just saved a lot too. NTA at all, and for the love of God, do not put his name on the deeds. He put absolutely zero towards it, and you're even offering him rent-free accommodation so he can save towards the bigger house, yet he calls you an AH. You guys need a proper sit-down to discuss finances, as this is not acceptable in the slightest. If he wants to blow all his money on experiences, that's fine, but he doesn't get the security of property in return. Don't be stupid. You worked hard for what you have. Keep what's yours, yours. Oh, not the a-hole too. NTA, we have a saying here, he wants to have his cake and eat it too. Basically, he wants all his expensive trips that he pays for, and he wants you to save up and buy him an apartment with no drain in his personal resources. That's a big red flag. Do not put his name on the apartment. If you buy another place and rent this out, then make sure the new place and the rent go to you and only you. Do not let him benefit from your hard work if he isn't willing to share in the efforts. When he pays half, he can own half. And if he's not on board with saving for a house with you, you need to charge him rent for living in your apartment. Alternatively, him living rent-free in your apartment could be paid for by him bringing you on some of his trips on his dime if you're at all interested. Mostly, I think you should just divorce him. Separate finances are great, but he wants his money for himself and he wants your money for himself, so I think you should seriously consider having not just separate finances, but separate lives. Am I the antagonist for telling my husband that I would kick him out before I kick my mother out? I, 40 female, have been married for 15 years together for 20 to my husband Nate, 42 male. We share 5 kids, 24, 21, 18, 14, 12, of which the oldest is my stepdaughter. I honestly feel that this is the end. A year and a half ago my mother suffered a stroke, which now requires her to have care. IWFH. This wasn't just some random thing. I discussed this with my husband, who agreed. About 6 months ago, he asked me to put her in a nursing home. He rarely, if at all, helps me with her. I do 98 halves when it comes to her care. I was upset and asked why. He felt that our time together was going to be hindered. That he didn't want this life, nor did he sign up for it. I would have respected that to an extent if he hadn't sprung me taking care of my mother-in-law, for years ago she moved out, which lasted nearly 5 years. She required more care than my mother. He didn't ask, just showed up to the house with her and her things. She had cancer but beat it. I had no problem helping him care for her, but I became the primary caregiver for her. Never did I ask him to put his mother in a nursing home. Not once. Never did I complain. My mother has trouble walking, walks with a walker or in a motorized wheelchair. She has problems talking but is still coherent. I have a brother who is able to watch over my mother when I need him to, but he can only do so much because he's in a wheelchair. We have a part-time nurse that comes in. My husband and I still have date night, time alone, family night, vacations, etc. I expected the same courtesy and respect I had for his mother. He gives me the excuse of it being financial. We are more than financially stable. I pay the bulk of the expenses because I make more. We have separate finances. We have no mortgage due to a home I inherited from my father. We have no debt because I paid it off. Our old home was sold to a relative of his, and I let him keep the money from it. Our children all have more than enough in their CF, which was more than doubled when my father passed. My father also included money for my stepdaughter as well. He's been consistently bringing up nursing homes, which made me ask, did he hate my mother? He told me no. That he was just looking out for everyone's well-being. I asked what he was hiding that he didn't want her here. He told me I was being crazy. He and my mother have a great relationship, or so I thought. She treated him so much like her son that she paid for him a full ride at a 4-year uni. His vibes have made me install cameras inside and outside of the home. I've put locks on all my accounts and CCs with F monitoring. So far, nothing. I've found nursing home pamphlets on my desk in my office. I've had nursing facilities to call me, which all have ended with arguments. The last time he mentioned it, I finally had it and told him that I would kick him out before I kicked my mother out. Now he's not talking to me, which I've welcomed the silence. Am I the antagonist for not wanting to put my mother in a nursing home? NTA, up until you talked about the mother-in-law thing, I was thinking nobody was the asshole, but he's seriously in the wrong here. I do wonder what is driving this, and I'd be furious to get calls and pamphlets. Maybe you should start leaving pamphlets for divorce lawyers or real estate agents. He seems to be really unwilling to discuss what's behind this push. It could be legitimate, but his lack of transparency is concerning. I am glad you've locked down your finances. I wonder if you should sit him down and go through one of his excuses and see if you can excavate the truth. Absolutely not the a-hole. You had more than enough courtesy to discuss this with him and decide together. He never did that with you. And then to just give out your information and have the nursing homes call you? You pay for the bulk of expenses and no one is financially hurting from it, and like you said, you still have your date nights and so on. He's out of line here. NTA at all. You're not going to give your mother-in-law less than you give your own mother. I would be reminding him every day about how you cared for his mother and ask him how many times you had nursing homes call him or dropped brochures on top of his shit. You helped his mother get well. Nice that he cares enough about your mother to allow you to get her to the same result. Also, if you are to the point where you felt his vibes require you to lock down your CCs and install cameras, I guess there's something in his past behavior that makes you feel him doing something upsetting is possible. For that reason alone, I would leave. Edit, mistaken saying mother instead of mother-in-law. His makes me think more about that new statistic that's finally come out, the one that says around 20% of husbands will leave their terminally sick wife. He's more worried about how it may impact him than what your mother needs. He moved his mother in because her dying would impact him. It's all him. This shows you what he will do if you ever get seriously sick. Good luck. Am I the antagonist for telling THR courts that my parents are unfit to be parents? I, 18 have a cousin that, for personal reasons, had ROB removed from her house and was placed in a foster home. I have a lot of friends that live at this children's home, so I was fine with the idea of her moving into there because I knew that it was a very nice establishment and that she would be taken care of properly. My parents don't see that place as a nice place and just see it as an orphanage and want to adopt her. I told them all the reasons why it wasn't a viable option, but they didn't care. We rent a house which doesn't even have enough rooms, and the landlord forbid us from building another room. My mom and dad are forever fighting about something. My parents also complain how they can barely support 3 kids and they want to bring in another. We had to go to court and the magistrate asked for my opinion, and I said that my cousin should live at the children's home as she would be cared for and she would be in a healthy environment where everything is essentially given to her. The children's home is run and funded by a very wealthy organization, and I also explained how my family isn't financially able to look after another child. I love my cousin like a sister, and we go to the same school, so I always see her and we hang out together all the time, but I feel it is for the best for her not to live with me. NTA. Custody assignments are supposed to be in the best interest of the child. If you believe your parents are unfit and financially unequipped for another child, then that is exactly the kind of information the court needs to know. You are not the a-hole for wanting your cousin in a safe and stable environment. NTA. If they can't support another kid financially and they're constantly fighting, they shouldn't bring in another kid. NTA. You were asked for your opinion. You gave it. You were honest with the court, which is exactly what they expect of you when asking you questions. Maybe your parents believed with you being 18 now, they could handle another minor in their care. But if you lied to get them what they want, it may very well not be in the best interest of your cousin. It's up to your parents to prove that they're a good match in this situation. It's not your job to prove it for them. Am I the antagonist for tricking my parents into being on time for my wedding? My M33 parents are late for everything. Like everything. Both of my sisters and myself have been disappointed so many times. Graduation ceremonies, birthday parties, even my father's retirement dinner. It is completely my mother's fault. She is a wonderful mother and I love her dearly. She just does not understand the concept of punctuality. I have seen her talking to her sister on the phone and reminded her she needed to be at my baby sister's dance recital. She waved me off and arrived after my sister had danced. We are all used to it. My dad is just done trying to get her to be on time for anything. My now wife, F28, told me in no uncertain terms that if my mother was late for our wedding she would do terrible things to me. She was only half joking. But she was a witness to my mom and dad arriving halfway through my cousin's quinceañera. So here is what I did. It is completely on me. Me wife was not involved. If there is a dick move, it was completely mine. When we were getting samples for the wedding, I talked to the printer and had one special invitation printed with the time on it stated S being 1 hour earlier than the actual start time of the ceremony. My mother was beside herself apparently when they left the house and thought they were going to miss the wedding since she was a part of it with her and my mother-in-law lighting the candles we would use to light the unity candle and stuff. When she arrived and noticed other people were also just arriving and parking, she was so relieved that we were starting late that she just went with it. The ceremony went off beautifully. And so did the wedding pictures and the reception. The problem came last Sunday. My parents came over for a big family dinner and we didn't bother starting the grill until they showed up. She asked why everyone wasn't eating and we just said we knew we would be waiting for them since they are always late. She said that she was not always late and had been on time for my wedding. She hadn't been. They arrived 45 minutes after the time on their invitation. My idiot cousin John, real name because it's common and he deserves people to know he is adult, snorted at her statement. A few other people giggled or smiled at this, and she picked up and asked what was so funny. I came clean and told her about the special invitation. She is pissed at me for not trusting her and making her look foolish in front of everyone. If my cousin had just controlled himself, she never would have known. Am I the antagonist? Edit. Part of the reason she is mad is because she had her invitation framed. To be honest, I was already planning a heist with my sisters to replace it with the real one in case she ever noticed the discrepancy between hers and the one we have framed in our home. Edit number 2. Yeah, we are Latinos. And no, I do not in any way consider it racist. How many of you guessed that? I have been to Spain and it's an issue there too. And the Philippines. Basically anywhere those guys were in charge. Edit 3. Stop defending John. He and I have spent 30 years messing with each other. I have an Am I the Antagonist story that ends with me getting an offensive tattoo, $5,000 for removal, and him getting a body cavity search at the Mexican border. I would post it, but it happened like 10 years ago. NTA, she is embarrassed because she has a problem showing up on time and you proved it. NTA, but realistically prepare for them to be even later from now on because she doesn't know if you're providing the real time. NTA, how can she complain? If you had sent her an invite with the real time, then she would have been 45 minutes late. She should appreciate the fact that you wanted her to be there enough that you took the time to make her a special invite to ensure she arrived on time. While it's nice of your family to have a good attitude and just accept that this is how your mom is, in all seriousness, it is pretty rude of her. I think your plan was really smart, especially considering she was still late even with her adjusted time. If I were you, I might give her a soft apology because she's feeling embarrassed, but reiterate why you did it. Her pattern of being late is what caused this. She's an adult, and she needs to be honest with herself about how her actions affect others. Would I be the antagonist for not offering a meat option at our wedding? Me, 26 female, and my fiancé, 28 male, are in the very early stages of wedding planning. Both of our families have offered to chip in, but we'll be covering the bulk. We're both vegetarians and really only have dairy products very occasionally. 9/10 we choose the vegan option and mainly cook vegan for ourselves. Just when we have the same meals as our baby, 10-month-old, we all eat the same. We can be in the same room as meat cooking, etc. We're not particularly preachy, we just don't want to spend money for animals to die in celebration of our wedding. Feels wrong us paying into that industry. Also looking forward to having a choice rather than the one option. My mom has already made a comment that it's not fair for us to not offer a meat option. We're of the mindset that it's literally one afternoon we're asking guests not eat meat. No one in our guest lists have any other dietary requirements we need to think about. She made the point that we'd expect a vegetarian option at someone else's wedding. So would I be the antagonist for not offering a meat option? Nta, as long as the menu is palatable and recognizable for non-vegan folks. Like, don't serve tempeh. Go with like pesto pasta instead. You know? NTA. People are not going to die if they eat a meal without meat for one meal. There are plenty of very delicious vegetarian meals. Your mom's argument is flawed because vegetarians cannot eat meat options, while meat eaters can eat vegetarian options. I'd rather eat a meal with tasty mac and cheese, crisp green beans, and freshly baked bread than a stale piece of chicken or overcooked steak. NTA, I had a vegetarian wedding and my family threatened to bring meat, but I held firm. At the end of the day, the food was amazing and everyone had a great time. I don't understand the fuss people kick up for one bloody meal. Your guests can suck it up for an afternoon if they really want to. And I'd expect that celebrating your marriage would be good enough reason to want to. Like seriously, eating meat is not an addiction. They need to get over themselves. It's not a fair comparison to say you'd expect a veggie/vegan option when the normal option is meat. Everyone could eat a veggie/vegan meal with allergen adjusts, but not everyone could eat a meat meal. Not hard to understand, but some people insist on pretending it is.